This happened just a few weeks ago. I'm 34 and recently graduated from college. I thought it would be a fresh start, but honestly, I just wanted to escape my boring office job for a while. I used to hike in the woods near my small town to clear my head after my breakup. One evening, I was hiking on a familiar trail. The sun was setting behind the trees. The air felt heavy with the smell of damp earth, and the pines swayed quietly. That's when I saw it. A beautiful black horse, taller than any I'd seen. It galloped through the trees like a shadow. I froze. It felt like I was seeing a ghost. Maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me, but when I took a step closer, the horse vanished into the shadows. My heart raced. Something about that horse intrigued me. For the next few days, I returned to the woods. Each twilight hike felt increasingly obsessive. I spotted the black horse again and again, right at the edge of my vision, only for it to slip away as I got closer. I felt like I was being led somewhere, but it always stayed just out of reach. I started finding odd things on the ground, broken toys, old coins. Each one felt heavy, like remnants of something lost. I picked them up, but unease crept in. Were they reminders of something? As I hiked, the woods shifted. Whispers rustled in the leaves. I checked over my shoulder more than once. Why did I keep coming back? I felt drawn forward by a thrill of discovery, even if it was just shadows I was chasing. Deeper into the woods, a feeling of dread grew in the air. I stumbled upon a clearing, an open space that felt wrong. Trampled underbrush surrounded me, like something had clawed through the earth. My hands grew clammy, and I felt cold creeping up my spine. I thought I heard the horse again, its hooves echoing softly behind me. Then there it was. The black horse stood in the clearing, staring at me. Relief should have washed over me, but instead a chill shot through me. It was too quiet. Everything felt wrong. I gulped, wanting to turn back, but I felt paralyzed. I opened my mouth to call out, but only silence came out. The horse let out a low whinny and took a step toward me, beckoning me to join it. I hesitated as it vanished. I stood there, heart racing. I was alone, yet something felt very wrong. I realized the woods had fallen silent, not a sound. I turned to leave when I heard a soft rustle behind me. I spun around, hoping it was just the wind or a small creature, but no, the horse reappeared, closer this time, its dark eyes boring into mine. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't move. It stepped forward again, and just like that, I felt something grab my leg, pulling me down. In a panic, I dropped the objects I had collected, but they vanished before they hit the ground. I was engulfed in shadows. As I gasped for air, the peaceful woods transformed into a suffocating darkness. And then, like the horse, I vanished too. I woke up with a jolt, gasping for air. My heart pounded in my chest. I was sprawled on the forest floor, surrounded by tall trees. The air felt heavier than before, and the faint light of day struggled to break through the canopy above. I blinked, trying to shake off the fog jumbling my thoughts. What just happened? The memory of the black horse flooded back like a wave. I had felt pulled into something dark, yet I was back here, safe, if you could call it that. I pushed myself up, brushing dirt from my clothes. The clearing was still there, but something was different. An unsettling energy hung in the air, like the calm before a storm. I scanned the ground, instinctively searching for the items I'd dropped. They were gone, just like I had been. I felt that familiar spark of dread flare up again. I wasn't alone. I sensed it, the way the trees stood close, as if they were watching me. I turned back toward the path, working my way out of the clearing, but a feeling gnawed at me. Should I leave, or should I stay and confront whatever was happening? Just then, I heard it, a faint whisper echoing through the trees. "Come back." It felt like a hush enveloping me. My heartbeat quickened again. Was it the woods or something else? I swallowed hard, feeling the urge to bolt. But somewhere deep within me, curiosity outweighed the fear. I hesitated, caught between escape and the urge to uncover the truth of the horse. I took a breath, steeling myself, and retraced my steps to the edge of the clearing. The leaves crunched beneath my feet with every cautious step. That's when I saw a figure in the distance, cloaked in shadows, standing where the horse had last been. My heart raced. Was it the horse taking a human form, or something worse? The figure shifted slightly, turning its head toward me, and I felt ice run through my veins. It smiled, a smile that didn't seem human. Then, as quickly as it appeared, the figure vanished into thin air. I stumbled backwards, breathless. Was that a warning? I couldn't decipher if I was meant to approach or escape. I glanced around, searching for the black horse, but all I found was a deep silence. In that moment of confusion, I noticed something glimmering on the ground where the figure had been. I moved closer, feeling a strange compulsion to pick it up. It was a smooth stone, like a polished obsidian shard. I turned it over in my palm when suddenly vivid images flashed in my mind. Places, faces, every vision twisted into a dark memory. I stumbled, dropping the stone. As it hit the ground, the forest erupted. The air thickened again, and shadows pooled around me like a suffocating blanket. I could hear the whispers now, a cacophony of voices crying out, echoing through the trees. My instincts screamed for me to run, but something held me in place. Then came the sound of hoofbeats, strong and powerful. The black horse emerged from the shadows, and this time it wasn't just a fleeting glimpse. It charged towards me, eyes bright with an otherworldly fire. I felt it drawing near, and with every heartbeat a decision loomed before me. Would I face it or flee the woods forever? The first thunderous hoot of the horse roared through my body, sending an electric pulse that begged for action. I felt rooted to the spot, paralyzed by fear and intrigue. The palpable tension in the air wrapped around me, making it hard to breathe. I fought the urge to run, but couldn't tear my eyes away from those fiery orbs in the dim light. The black horse was closer now, its muscled frame glistening like jet against the backdrop of the gloomy forest. I could feel its power radiating, something ancient and raw. As it charged forward, a surge of courage rushed through me. Maybe I could understand it. Maybe it was not just a creature to be feared. I took a tentative step forward. "Wait!" I called out, though I hardly knew what I was asking it to do. To my surprise, the horse skidded to a stop, snorting loudly as if startled. It tossed its mane, and for a moment the world stood still around us. My heart raced, but I held my ground. In the silence that followed, my thoughts flickered back to the stone. The visions it had held clawed at the back of my mind, faces flickering in and out like shadows. My hands trembled, and although I didn't want to look, I knew I had to glean more from what I had touched. I took a breath and slowly reached down to pick it up again, feeling that compulsion pulling at me. As soon as I grasped the obsidian shard, the whispers returned. This time they were clearer, each voice cutting through the dense silence. They lamented, implored, called out names I couldn't recognize. It felt like I was tuning in to a channel from another world, a chorus of histories long forgotten. My grip tightened on the stone, and with it I felt a hot rush of air, the sort that came before a storm. And there it was,
As if the wind carried the words of the forest, a story began to unravel. I saw glimpses of a village long lost, abandoned homes swallowed by nature. People had suffered in shadows, and their stories, their pain, clung to the fabric of the stone. The black horse whinnied, nostrils flaring, as if urging me to listen, to go deeper. Suddenly, a clash of sounds broke the spell. A branch snapped nearby. I jerked my head toward the noise, fear clawing at my throat. I was not alone. Out of the thick underbrush emerged another figure, cloaked in darkness. I could barely make out its features, but the sense of dread washed over me again, more intense than before. My instinct screamed, but curiosity held me firm. "Who are you?" I called out, my voice steadier than I felt. The eyes that met mine from the shadows held a secret, an invitation laced with danger. "You should not have come back," it said, its voice a low growl that sent chills down my spine. The black horse pawed at the ground, and everything shifted. I was caught between the pull of the figure and the power of the creature.
The forest electric with tension. Suddenly, the whispers became deafening, penetrating my thoughts. Before I could react, the figure lunged forward, and I felt my heart plummet. Would the forest consume me too? Another lost story among the trees? The figure rushed at me, an outline cloaked in darkness. I stumbled backward, clutching the shard tighter, feeling heat surge through the stone as if it responded to my fear. The black horse whinnied, its ears flattening against its head, ready to bolt or defend. "Stop!" I yelled, bracing myself. My voice faltered, but adrenaline drowned out my trepidation. The figure halted just short of me, a flash of light reflecting off a silver dagger in its hand. I blinked, trying to read the face hidden in shadow, but it was obscured, even in the glimmers of moonlight. Panic tinged the edges of my thoughts. Who was this person? "Why are you here?" they hissed, their voice sharp and full of venom. "You shouldn't have disturbed what was sleeping." "I don't know what you mean. I just found this stone," I stammered, my gaze darting between the figure and the horse. The obsidian shard pulsed in my grip, as if tethered to the very heart of the forest. The darkness seemed to coil around the figure, flickering like a flame. "That is not just a stone. It is a gateway. You've awakened something." My throat went dry. I felt the weight of the forest pressing in, alive with unseen eyes. The horse stomped, its presence a protective barrier, yet I felt the tension stretching thin. "What have I awakened?" I forced myself to ask, my voice trembling. The figure's laughter echoed eerily. "Legends live here, scattered within the soil. They were banished into the earth, never to be heard again, but you've let them loose." I choked back my fear. "What do you want from me?" Panic clawed at my insides, but I couldn't show weakness. I clutched the shard like a lifeline, desperate for answers. "It's not I who wants anything from you," the figure replied. "The one who was bound is returning, and you might as well be a beacon lighting the way." What does that even mean? My heartbeat thundered, drowning out the rustle of leaves and distant cries of the night. Suddenly, the air shifted. A gust whipped through the clearing, rolling cold and deep. The horse snorted, clearly sensing something shifting in the forest around us. And then I saw it, a shadow on the edge of my vision, undulating, creeping closer. I gasped as the black horse reared, snapping its powerful hooves to the ground. "Get out of here!" I screamed at the figure, desperate to escape the encroaching darkness. An instinct kicked in, urging me to trust the horse, to find safety with it. As in response, the horse charged forward, startling me into the moment.
"Wait!" I shouted, not ready to leave the tile of earth where so many mysteries hovered in the air. But the force of the animal pulled me along, my feet barely keeping up with its momentum.
And then everything went dark. A sudden wave of dark energy crashed over me, and I was swept away into the depths of the forest. The whispers rose again, angry and chaotic. I realized I might have just signed my own fate by following the darkness, and now there was no turning back. The horse galloped through the thick underbrush, its hooves barely touching the ground. I clung to its mane, the wind tearing at my clothes as branches whipped past us. I could barely catch my breath, my thoughts tangled in confusion and fear. The darkness swallowed us, wrapping tighter around my chest with each beat of my heart. And then, just as suddenly as the chaos began, we burst into a small clearing. The moonlight spilled over the ground like a spilled bucket of silver paint, illuminating the space around us. The air felt strangely calm, but an unsettling silence replaced the frantic noise of the forest. The horse stopped abruptly, shaking its head, and I nearly toppled off. I looked around, trying to make sense of where we were. The clearing was flat and empty, save for an ancient stone altar rising from the center, covered in moss and vines. The altar buzzed with energy, making the hair on my arms stand on end, and I felt a magnetic pull toward it that made my pulse race. The weight of the shard in my pocket was suddenly unbearable. I could feel its warmth against my skin, throbbing with an urgency that made me hesitate. My instincts screamed at me to leave, but my curiosity was a nagging voice I couldn't silence. As I approached the altar, I felt the tension shift in the air, prickling against my skin. "What is this place?" I whispered to myself, half tempted to reach for the stone. Just then, the sharp sound of cracking twigs broke through the silence, freezing me in my tracks. A figure emerged from the shadows, stepping into the moon's glow. My heart sank when I recognized them. It was the cloaked figure from before. They stood at the edge of the clearing, their dagger glinting ominously. The gentle moonlight had transformed their shadowy form into something chilling. I instinctively took a step back, but there was nowhere to hide. "You should not have come here," they said, their voice eerily calm now. "You set this foot in a kingdom where power comes with a price. The stone you hold, it is a key to a nightmarish existence, and you have the ability to open the door." The quiet of the clearing shattered my resolve. "I didn't ask for this," I shouted. "Just leave me alone." Their laughter filled the air, cold and hollow. "You unleashed the darkness, and it won't let you go. You have woken the ancient ones, and they are hungry." Before I could respond, a low rumble echoed through the ground. The altar began to shake, roots snaking upwards from the earth like grasping fingers. Something dark and massive stirred beneath us, and the whispers returned, rising to a crescendo. I stumbled back, eyes wide. "What did I do?" I gasped, clenching the shard tighter. It pulsed harder, almost as if it were alive, feeling the terror emerging from the depths below. Then, from the dark soil, a face broke through, a twisted, grotesque visage with eyes that glowed like burning embers. It opened its mouth, revealing rows of jagged teeth. That's when I realized I hadn't just opened a door. I had unwittingly invited malevolence into my world. Panic surged as I turned to escape, but the shadow behind the figure grew larger, casting an overwhelming darkness that enveloped us all. There was no more running. The ground shook harder, and I stumbled backward, nearly losing my footing. My heart raced as I stared at the horrific face emerging from the earth. The figure with the dagger laughed again, but it held no humor, only malice. I felt the darkness creeping closer, wrapping itself around my legs like a snake. "Run!" I shouted, but the command was directed at myself.
I turned and dashed toward the edge of the clearing, desperate to escape the horror that was unfolding. My breath came in quick gasps, and I barely glanced back. The altar loomed like a predator, ready to consume whatever was foolish enough to approach. But then I stopped. I heard a voice, deep and resonant, echoing from the ground. It whispered my name, a chilling invitation. It felt wrong, but my legs were rooted to the spot. The shard in my pocket was blazing hot now, pulling me back toward the altar despite my instincts. I fought against its lure and turned to the cloaked figure. "What do you want from me?" I yelled, unwilling to back down. They stepped forward, a twisted smile on their shadowy face. "You know what you need to do. The power calls to you. Embrace it or lose everything." Fear spiraled through me. Everything in me wanted to scream and flee, but I was anchored fast. Something inside me whispered that understanding was my only chance. "What do you mean?" I managed to ask. "The Ons demand a vessel. The shard holds the key, but only you can decide if you want to join the darkness or fight it." The ground trembled again, and the monstrous face gaped wider, revealing its jagged teeth. The whispers intensified, a cacophony of voices begging, pleading, cursing. I shook my head, bewildered. No, how could I ever embrace something like that? But doubt gnawed at me. What if the only way to escape was to understand? I had already taken the step to discover the shard's secret. Was it foolish to explore it further? Nearly overwhelmed, I gritted my teeth and took another step toward the altar. "What do I have to do?" I demanded. The figure's smile widened, and suddenly the menacing atmosphere shifted, replaced with the hum of strange energy crackling around me. "Trust in the darkness and hand over the shard," they said, extending their hand. Just then, the dark visage in the ground roared, sending a shockwave through the air. "Your choice, little one," the figure taunted. "Join us and discover powers beyond your wildest dreams, or be devoured." I felt the urgency radiating around me, and in the corner of my eye I spotted something emerging beneath the altar, a slithering root, pulsating and alive. It reached for me, as if it sensed the madness already stirring in my heart. Every instinct screamed at me to resist, to run away from whatever was lurking, but the thrill of power danced at the edge of my mind. And then everything went dark. I awoke in a cold sweat, the air thick with an acrid smell that settled in my throat like ash. The darkness had not been gentle. I lay sprawled on the ground, disoriented, with no trace of the clearing or the altar in sight. Instead, I found myself in what felt like a suffocating blanket of shadows, the only sound the pounding of my heart, still racing from the terror. "Where am I?" I muttered, my voice barely more than a whisper. It felt unreal, as if I had stepped into someone else's nightmare. The memories of that figure, the dagger, and the monstrous face loomed large in my mind. Why was I here? What had I done? As I pushed myself off the ground, my fingers brushed against something hard and cold. The shard. I pulled it from my pocket, and its surface gleamed even in this pitch blackness. It pulsed slightly in my hand, as if alive, and I could almost feel it pulling me towards something unseen. A chill ran down my spine. Had I made a mistake? I needed to clear my head, to think. I stood up on shaky legs, eyes adjusting to the absolute blackness surrounding me. There was something in the air, an electric energy that made my hairs on the neck stand up. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught my attention. I squinted into the void, and in an instant bright white eyes appeared, reflecting and piercing through the dark. Panic surged in my chest. I took a tentative step back, but my foot landed on something soft and yielding. I looked down to find more of those slithering roots, creeping towards me like tendrils of darkness trying to bind me again. "Get away!" I yelled, kicking at them. My heart raced as I started to run, my breath quickening, but the eyes were still following me. They blinked as if taunting my retreat. Were those eyes a warning? A predator? Then without warning, the roots coiled tighter around my feet, pulling me down. I nearly tripped, but I wrenched my legs free, stumbling forward. The ground shifted under my weight, and I felt a tremor like the earth was alive with something old and vengeful. "Stop!" I shouted, my voice cracking. I had to keep moving, had to escape whatever this was.
I could feel the shard growing warmer in my palm, as if urging me on. I didn't want to give in, but fear gnawed steadily at my resolve. In the distance, light flickered, a faint glimmer breaking through the shadows. It beckoned to me like a lighthouse in a storm. I hesitated, torn between the dark forces surrounding me and the hope that lay ahead. I felt the pull of the shard grow more intense, and with a deep breath, I forged ahead toward the light. As I stumbled closer, the glow revealed a circle of ancient stones, each etched with markings I hadn't seen before. In the center stood a small figure cloaked in white. My heart dropped. Was it another trap? "Help me!" I cried, instinctively reaching for the figure. That was when I realized it was holding something, a dagger that gleamed under the pale light. My throat tightened as I recognized it from the darkness. "Leave now, or join your fate with the Ones," the figure spoke, its voice echoing eerily. I backed away, but the weight of the shard pulsed in my hand. I had to make a choice, and the shadows were closing in. I pressed back against the stones, my pulse racing as the figure's words reverberated in my mind. Join my fate with the Ones? What did that even mean? The dagger in its hand glinted ominously, casting reflections that danced on the stones like shimmering spirits. "Wait!" I yelled, taking another cautious step back. The shadows were thickening, swallowing the light around me. I needed to gather my wits. What if this figure was linked to the creatures that had chased me? What are the Ones? The figure tilted its head slightly, and those bright eyes bored into mine, unblinking. "The ancients who dwell in the darkness, they are hungry, and they remember." A wave of dread washed over me. I could feel the pull of the shard intensify, a desperate urgency that disturbed me. Had I awakened something? Was it connected to the Ones? "Please, I need to understand," I stammered, my voice stronger than before. "How do I stop this?" The figure chuckled softly, but it wasn't a comforting sound. "You believe you are the master of your fate, but the shard binds you to this place, to the night. You will have to face your fears head on." My breath caught in my throat. Face my fears? The twisted roots? The glowing eyes? As if responding to my thoughts, the ground shivered, and I felt the shadows writhe around my feet. I didn't want to be part of this darkness. With a sudden thought, I raised the shard above my head. "If you truly want to help, then tell me how to use this." For a moment, the figure stood still, contemplating me. "The shard is your only ally now. In your heart lies the key." What did that mean? I frowned, confusion mixing with fear. But before I could think further, I noticed a rumble beneath my feet. The ground split open slightly, and the roots surged forward. They twisted around my ankles, tightening like a vice. "Enough!" I shouted, raising the shard higher. "Leave me alone." As if my words had cut through the darkness, a shockwave pulsed from the shard, sending out a blinding light. The roots recoiled, hissing like angry serpents. The figure stepped back, dropping the dagger as the light engulfed it, casting long shadows that revealed fleeting glimpses of distorted faces lurking within the dark. I heard whispers, almost unintelligible as the ground continued trembling. Who were they? Then everything went dark again. The blinding light snuffed out, leaving me alone with the essence of dread that pressed against my chest. The figure had vanished, and the roots slowed their assault, retreating, but still close. Panic exploded within me, driving me forward into the unknown. I had to escape this, to find out what I had unleashed. My heart was pounding in my ears. What did it mean to face this darkness? That was when I noticed the glimmer beneath the stones where the figure had stood.
Something was there, half buried, shimmering like a beacon in the murk. I stumbled toward it, my curiosity overpowering my fear, but in the back of my mind I knew whatever was hidden there might change everything. And just as I reached out, a sharp pain shot through my hand, as if the shadows had teeth, and I realized too late that I might not be alone after all. The pain jerked me back, and I yanked my hand away, cradling it against my chest. The shadows around me pulsed, as if sensing my fear, and a low growl rumbled in the darkness. I turned to flee, but the very earth beneath my feet felt alive, shifting and writhing, trying to ensnare me again. I took a breath. I had to think. My gaze darted around, searching for an escape. The air felt heavy, thick with the scent of damp earth and decay. There was a question nagging at the back of my mind. What if the glimmer was something I needed? I glanced back at the faint light, urging me to approach. It flickered, teasing me like a whisper of hope in a suffocating night. I took a cautious step forward, ignoring the searing pain in my hand. The moment I touched it again, I knew I had to uncover the truth. The shadows crept closer, and I could hear their whispers now, clearer than before. "Face your fate," they seemed to chant. I shivered. I didn't want to believe them, but deep down I felt a strange connection. It was like they knew me, knew my fears. I reached down and brushed away the dirt and stones. My fingers closed around the object. It was cold and smooth like glass, but it pulsed with energy that sent tremors up my arm. I pulled it free and held it up to my eyes. A small, intricately designed amulet in the shape of a crescent moon, its surface etched with symbols I didn't recognize. As I turned it over in my hand, the darkness around me seemed to gasp, a collective intake of breath. "You shouldn't have touched it," a voice hissed from the shadows. My heart raced. I wasn't alone anymore. Whatever had been lurking was now alert, tracking my every movement.
"Who's there?" I called out, trying to sound braver than I felt. The shadows shifted, and from their depths a large figure emerged. Tall and gaunt, barely more than a silhouette, it loomed in front of me with eyes that glowed like embers. "Foolish child," it said, its voice a gravelly whisper. "You've awakened the ones before their time. Their hunger will be your undoing." I backed away, clutching the amulet. It felt familiar, yet foreign. Could it protect me, or was it merely a beacon to draw the darkness closer? "Leave now while you still can," I shouted, though my throat felt dry and choked. "I won't be your pawn." The figure laughed, a sound that sent a chill down my spine. "You are already entangled in their fate. You think you can escape? They will come for you, drawn to the shard, drawn to your heart." There was no more time to think. I turned to run, but the ground trembled violently beneath me. Roots shot up, weaving through the cracks in the earth, capturing my ankles. I fell to the ground, the amulet slipping from my grasp. As I struggled against the constricting roots, a thought pierced through my panic. If the shard had power, could the amulet amplify it? I could almost hear the shadows whispering their dark promises. With a surge of determination, I wrenched my wrist free and lunged for the amulet. I felt the very air shift as the growls grew louder, and the figure's laughter echoed through the growing chaos. I had to act now. As my fingers wrapped around the amulet, something deep within me awakened. The darkness seemed to part for a moment, revealing an escape route. This is it, my only chance. But before I could rise, I caught the glint of something moving in the shadows, a shift in the darkness that made my blood run cold. Then it lunged, faster than I could react. The figure lunged toward me, its gaunt form twisting and contorting, a grotesque blur against the dimness. I barely had time to react. In a flash, it was upon me, teeth bared, and I flailed, panic coursing through my veins. I needed to be free, to escape from this nightmare. But just then, as its shadow enveloped me, the amulet in my grip sparked to life. A blinding light burst from it, momentarily illuminating the darkened woods and pushing back the shadows that encroached upon me. I felt a surge of energy wash over me, a powerful current, dispelling the tangible fear that had threatened to consume me. "What is happening?" the figure shrieked, retreating slightly as the light pushed against it. I was taken aback. The energy from within the amulet was strong enough to push it back. Maybe, just maybe, it could also help me escape. "Leave me alone," I shouted, gripping the amulet tighter. The figure recoiled, and as I rose to my feet, I felt the pull of the darkness fighting against my will. "You won't control me." I faced the snarling figure, watching as the shadows coiled around it like serpents, tugging it back towards the dark abyss. It hissed and cursed, its eyes burning with rage. "You are a fool to think you can wield that power. The ones will come for you, and all you hold dear will be lost." The forest quivered with whispers, their anger palpable in the frigid air. But as I held the amulet aloft, the light it emitted only grew brighter, illuminating the path behind me, the path leading out of this maddening forest. "Enough!" I yelled one last time, slicing through the despair that threatened to wrap around my heart. With my voice echoing through the trees, I took a step backward, still clinging to the light of the amulet. I was finding my courage again, the need to survive overwhelming any remnants of fear. I turned and ran, moving quickly through the dim woods. The whispers shrieked in my ears, trying to tempt, to confuse, to pull me back into their grasp. In the distance, I could vaguely see more shadows swirling, encroaching from all directions. Were they the ones the figure had warned me about? Were they returning? With each step, I felt the ground pulse beneath me, alive and restless. I sprinted for all I was worth, heart racing, and even though the darkness was clawing at my heels, I held the amulet tightly against my chest, its glow guiding my way. The trees loomed taller than ever, their crooked branches slicing through the air, but the light continued to beat against the shadows, pushing them back. Just as fear threatened to consume me again, I broke through into the clear moonlit night, the forest abruptly falling silent behind me. I stumbled into a field, bathed in pale light, the warm breath of the night air sweeping over my face. I looked back, panting. The woods loomed, casting twisted shadows, but the darkness seemed to hesitate at the edge of the trees, as if wary of the field's purity. Relief mixed with a lingering dread. The truth was, I might have escaped the woods, but the shadows would forever linger in my mind, unshakable and haunting. The amulet pulsed gently in my hand, its power still palpable. What had I truly unleashed? What was this burden I now carried? I took a moment to breathe, standing at the threshold between safety and the unknown. I felt different. A piece of me had been awakened, something ancient intertwined with the despair of that forest. I glanced back one last time into the shadows I'd narrowly escaped, and in that moment I couldn't shake the feeling that the darkness was merely waiting. It had not gone away, it simply bided its time. As much as I wished to put it behind me, I knew that the question of what I had awakened and the shadowy figure seeking vengeance would linger indefinitely. Just as I turned to leave, I caught one last whisper carried on the wind, faint but unmistakable. "You are forever bound." And in that moment, my heart sank. Was I truly free? I didn't know.
The woods behind me felt alive with uncertainty, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd merely set the stage for something even darker to unfold.
I moved forward, but uncertainty lingered like smoke, teasing the edges of my consciousness. Would I ever truly escape that forest, or was I just a step away from darkness? I guess I'll never know.